I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
In 1976, the Academy Award-winning movie Network stunned audiences. The vicious media satire featured a disillusioned TV news anchor threatening to commit suicide on the air.
I'm gonna blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
What most viewers didn't know was that this desperate act was far from fiction.
The woman host of a local television broadcast shot herself in the head while the program was on the air.
In journalism, there's a saying, if it bleeds, it leads. On a midsummer's day in 1974, Florida anchorwoman Christine Chubbuck's on-air suicide topped newscasts around the world.
It was definitely a local story that ended up transcending the news business.
Chris Chubbuck.
Chris Chubbuck.
It was a huge story. It was all over the networks and all over the newspapers.
Not only does one kill oneself, but you do it publicly. You scream, this is what I'm going through. This is what you've made of me.
Christine Chubbuck grew up in an upscale suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. Even as a teenager, she stood out from the crowd.
Most of the time she spent, I think, feeling like she was an outsider. And there were times when she was so moody that you could just tell by looking at her that you'd best back off.
She had no grays in her life. Everything was black and white. Things were either wonderful or terrible. Chrissy just didn't have a compromise button.
Christine's volatile moods and high standards alarmed her family.
Chris clearly had some depressive issues. My parents took her to psychologists and so forth.
There were two sides to her. There was this side that was warm and loving and funny and generous and giving, and then there was this other side that was just like this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
After high school, Chubbuck studied film and television at Boston University, then scored a job as an on-air reporter at WXLT, a small market channel in the coastal town of Sarasota, Florida.
It was a young station. It was literally what they call a mom and pop station. Many of us were right out of college.
I remember the first time they brought in Christine Chubbuck. She was hired because she was intelligent, smart, witty, very good writer.
She was very anxious to be seen. She felt that because she's on the edge of a large market that maybe somebody from Tampa, St. Petersburg might see her, they might hire her.
Christine was hired on in the evenings. Later, she progressed to the morning community affairs shows.
Sunkist Digest, it was at 9 in the morning, and it was not scripted. It was strictly interview, ad-lib.
Is it really necessary to have another hospital?
You know, it was not the best time slot, and they didn't give her the resources, but they gave her an opportunity.
Still, in the early 1970s, breaks for women in broadcasting were few and far between.
Next on Eyewitness News.
But Christine was talented and determined.
At that time, let's face it, it was when most news anchors were male, and she was trying to make her own niche. Even today, it's very difficult for women to break into the profession because they're all looking for the Barbie doll look and the bubbly personality, and you know, that wasn't her.
Chubbuck also grew agitated with her station's constant push towards crime-oriented stories, or what she often referred to as blood and guts TV.
TV is showbiz, Max, and even the news has to have a little showmanship.
I think that part of television, that salacious part of television, Chris detested.
In the 70s, there was a struggle to put more violence on the air.
There was a certain praise that upper management gave to someone who did get a story that involved some kind of action or some kind of crime.
And I think a lot of journalists had to really reconcile whether this was the business they wanted to be in.
In the early summer of 1974, Christine appeared to have a sudden change of heart and volunteered to produce the kind of story that her bosses were looking for.
She said, I would like to do a feature on suicide. One of the first places she went was to the sheriff's office.
One of the sheriff's deputies said she had asked me about how someone would commit suicide for a news story, and he told her the bullets that he would use and the type of pistol.
She said something to the effect of, wouldn't it be wild if I blew myself away on the air?
She pulled the gun out, put it to her head.
At that point, I wasn't absolutely sure it was real.
In 1974, Christine Chubbuck was a rising young talent in the world of TV journalism. Although she was making a name for herself professionally, personally, she was growing more and more isolated.
I think Christine never really had the image of herself that the rest of the world perceived. They perceived her as confident, they perceived her as attractive, they perceived her as gifted at her job, and I don't know that she really perceived herself fully as any of that.
The talented but troubled 29-year-old suffered from depression and was frustrated with her station's focus on what she liked to call blood and guts reporting.
I think she felt that the station emphasized sensationalism over serious journalism.
Monday morning, July 14th, 1974, started out like any other workday at station WXLT.
I come into the station that morning, and then I walk into the control room, see how things are going there. Then I walk back to the newsroom and talk with Chris for a few minutes.
She was in a much better than normal mood. To this day, her enthusiasm still puzzles me.
She had prepared some news to be read, which was highly unusual because we did not report news on that program. It was a community affairs feature.
The moment Christine went on the air, it became clear she was more interested in making news than reporting it.
We're in the process of doing the first 5 minutes of news, and at that time she says,
"In keeping with Channel 40's policy of bringing you the latest in blood and guts and in living color, you're going to see another first."
She pulled the gun out, put it to her head.
The actual shot went over the air. At that point, I wasn't absolutely sure it was real. Once I saw the movement of her head, I knew it was.
And she goes, slumps onto the desk.
The camera person peered over the camera and said something like, "Christine, that's the worst joke I've ever seen done." And she noticed that the body was quivering and that there was blood.
So I go out to the studio, expecting to give her a piece of my mind for such a sick joke, and see her laying over in the studio floor with the half side of her head blown off. Everyone was in a state of shock at the same time. We just didn't believe what we were seeing.
The desk was covered with blood. I got a rag and some water and a razor blade, and I sat down at the desk and began to scrape the blood away. And I realized as I was sitting there, the tears were running down my face and dripping into this red mess that was on the table.
In a suicide note, Christine said goodbye to coworkers and loved ones, and she added one chilling thought.
She said that she wanted to do this and she wanted everybody to see it.
30-year-old Chris Chubbuck is in critical condition tonight.
Christine Chubbuck never recovered from her gunshot wound. She died on July 15th, 1974.
Personally, I feel Christine wanted some significance in her life, and for whatever reason she did it, the exact reason still baffles me today.
Nobody really knew her. People didn't really know who she was. They had no idea of what kind of person she was, what was going on in her head.
2 years after Christine's tragic act made headlines across the world, legendary screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky made news of his own with a film he had written called Network, starring Peter Finch and Faye Dunaway.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this moment to announce that I will be retiring from this program in 2 weeks' time because of poor ratings. Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself.
When it came to Christine Chubbuck's life, sadly, no one could say it's only a movie.
And it has a kind of terrible irony. You want ratings, I'll give you ratings. Good enough? Good enough ratings.
The American people want somebody to articulate their rage for them.
Was her final statement a rage against that kind of television? Yes, clearly it was. Was it how she felt? Absolutely.
Everybody that knew her had some regret that we hadn't realized her problem.
If you have even a suspicion somebody's in trouble, do everything you can to help. Hold them in your arms. Remember to tell people you love them. It's the best you can do.
So turn off your television sets right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of a sentence I'm speaking to you.